So we're going to talk today about cybersecurity programs for industrial control systems in multinational corporations. We've done quite a bit of work with multinational corporations and with industrial control systems, and these things have their own twist that we wanted to share the experience. Let's see, next. All right.
All right, and a brief introduction. We're both consultants with the Siemens Plant Security Services. This is a special group that was started in 2013 specifically to bring our expertise in manufacturing and automation into the world of IT security. So as you can see, Vladimir and myself have many years of experience working with instrumentation and controls.
Right, and from there we made the jump to cybersecurity. Especially the Stuxnet story helped bridge that divide.
And this is just an overview of what we'll be talking about today. We'll go through the phases of implementing a cybersecurity program for multinational corporations, and then provide 2 examples of reference projects that we have.
All right, the multinationals actually are interesting creatures because these are usually corporations that have facilities spread around the world, and correspondingly they are subject to different rules and regulations depending on the region. They have certain cultural differences. Actually, as a person working for one of those multinational, I can tell you that even, for example, US and Germany, more or less, we fairly respect each other, but you can hear plenty of things along the lines that our special American friends, they come up with these market requirements again, or these Germans with their processes, they're killing us. So, then every region, you live your life nicely and pleasantly. All of a sudden, say France decides that, hey, in our critical sector, everything should be French. So how about we add some devices there? Or UAE says, you know, with these attacks constantly coming, how about we adopt some regulations? And by the way, you are not taking the data out of the plant anymore. So, or you monitor your fleet in the United States and South America, and all of a sudden you're SIP, and you have to really split that because the regulations for New York SIP are different from anything else, and you can't really mix and match. So, certainly there are some language things. There can be different control systems in different regions. Simply from the history of the company or the history of main vendors in the region. In Europe, you see, by the way, more Siemens, and in US, I mean, things that are other than Siemens are much more prevalent. And so, and in Australia and China, they can be like as much as your fantasy allows you, really. So the operating procedures and operation practices from region to region are fairly sometimes different, because no matter how you try, people in China and India will operate a little bit differently than people in US. You will have different manpower, you will have different structures, different degree of automation to a certain extent. So all that makes that group of companies unique. In addition, some of the companies, it's amazing how many facilities they can have. I mean, starting with your chemical things and finishing with food and beverages, when the number of facilities goes toward the 1,000, to implement something that establishes just baseline security at so many places simultaneously or within reasonable time is a fairly challenging task.
And here we have the pillars of the cybersecurity program. In the foundation, you're all familiar with the CIA triad for industrial facilities. This is inverse. So availability is the highest priority, integrity is close second, and confidentiality is a third because it's not so straightforward to get intellectual property out of process logic controls. It's much easier to get that from an engineering document in the corporate network. And one of the challenges we have today is finding people that have both skills in instrumentation and controls in manufacturing and in cybersecurity. We usually just have one or the other. It's also the human factor is the weakest link in any security program, so the importance of establishing security awareness with all plant personnel, whether they're technical or not, is important. Effective processes, not time killers, and to select and configure your choices of technology so that availability is maintained. You don't want to lose production because of a security issue.
Okay, in larger companies, everything good comes from the top. Because when they try to do it from the bottom, usually it's end up being a monument to somebody's good intentions. We did see it time and time again. You have a very enthusiastic person at a plant or regional level. They push some security things. They get somewhere. Then the structure changes. The guy retires. He moves to another job. Whatever happens, and then you're left with some monument to good intentions, how to do things better. It does not scale and it does not translate across the enterprise. The other thing is that it's fairly expensive. Even the very basic stuff that you need to implement is fairly expensive to do, so you need to budget. And that budget needs to be allocated across the globe, across the whole organization. So the security strategy needs to be defined by the board, CEO level, right? Some funds allocated to the creation of the program. There should be an organization for ICS security because ICS is different from IT. You can't patch. You have different priorities. So it has to be special. That requires money. So and requires organization. The security program development and consequent implementation and management. As far as we see in our practice, the program development is best done on the headquarter level because the rules should be more or less the same for all the regions. And then implementation and management should be regional because every region has its own specifics and you need manpower with their own expertise at the regional level to continuously support and to implement it. The solution partner, usually it's something that is really required. The manufacturing companies, by definition, their business is manufacturing, whatever they are doing, because simply they couldn't do everything by themselves. It's too much expertise, specialized expertise that is required. It's very difficult to allocate. So at some point during the development, and probably implementation, these customers do need assistance because that's a manpower intensive, labor intensive part of the whole thing.
And this is an overview of the major phases. It should seem straightforward that you would know what kind of devices you're using in your manufacturing facilities, what vendors, what operating systems and hardware you're using. But that information is not always available. So in the beginning, you need to do an assessment, an identification phase, and quantify the risk.
Quantifying the risk, by the way, you can usually, again, you can quantify the risk to the customer. But as far as putting specific dollar number to that risk, it's a fairly difficult task. Best left to the customers themselves, because whatever you come up with as a number, they can always explain to you that you know nothing about their production and the number is wrong. And it's actually something mechanical that is much higher risk, and that's where the money should go. So the corporation needs to get to certain cultural state where they understand that cyber is really a problem that needs to be addressed. If their mind, their high management mind is not there, you can do all the risk assessments you want, you're not going to get past that step.
Yes, and we'll talk more in detail about the policies in the next slide. Just to mention the importance of the monitoring center at the end, and also to think about the entire life cycle of the security program, because security is not static, so you have to build that into your KPIs.
All right, some of the more or less main your standard things that we consider when we are developing a cybersecurity program for our customers. Again, the training of the personnel, policies, procedures, your regular controls. ICS is way, way behind IT in the security realm. I mean, at most of the facilities, your average manufacturer, I'm not talking about military industrial complex or country of Israel, say your normal average manufacturer, you go there, most of the stuff will be default. There will be default passwords everywhere, there will be SNMP1 with read-write rights. The antivirus will be from 2 years ago updated, there will be no patches, you'll have XP, sometimes NT, 2003 server, whatever. Firmware will be also old. So these are very basic technical controls that we like the customers to implement or to consider implementing. One of the, from those, the most kind of current, maybe next generation firewalls, IPS IDS, and even those customers who have existing IPS IDS, in our experience, the use of it is, put it bluntly, ineffective. So that usually requires a review. The KPIs are fairly important because they in most cases, they have, even if they have some security measures, they don't have KPIs that track how effective those security measures are. And the development of templates and compliance sheets so that they can quickly check and understand, was it implemented what they planned to implement or not, is fairly important step. Project management during the rollout, especially for customers with numerous facilities in all regions, this is fairly complex task, and I will talk about it a little bit later when we go through Lindy example, because that one has around 1,000 plants, and actually it's fairly difficult to push everything in parallel at the same time.
And because of the geographical distribution, you need to set up multiple core teams for the rollout from the headquarters. So, take into account time zones, cultural factors. The next slide, we have the...
It's not just the cultural factors. Again, usually when you have this kind of distribution, first of all, prevalent control systems will be different. So, and when you are implementing security measures at ICS, you really want people who are doing that to know about that ICS, because otherwise bad things can happen. The second, you do need people who know, and you do need vendor support. So if here you have mainly something from Siemens. Your team should have expertise in Siemens systems. And here maybe you need more from Emerson, and there is one or two Siemens that really is not the focus. Yep.
Yes, and these teams need to have certain competencies. Just to highlight, you don't just need the obvious security and IT competencies, but you also need commissioning experience and expertise with the industry. And in the pyramid, we showed the development of the security program from the headquarters, and that needs to be rolled out to the regional teams. And this is just to show the kind of information flow of how the headquarters will support the regional teams with their configuration and implementation of the policies.
Okay, and that was an example, again, that's really a real customer. Where there was an interaction between on the headquarter and regional levels. So we had to set up some lines of communication and feedback loops on both headquarter and the regional levels in both organizations, because in general, okay, you are pushing something from the headquarters that is located, say, in Europe, and your regional team in China wants to use your security partner for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have local expertise. The purchase order for that support will come from China to the corresponding Chinese regional organization of the security partner. That needs to flow back to headquarters, that will coordinate with the customer headquarters, and then flows back to the region. So these are the things that you need to take into account. It can get fairly messy with all the relations between region headquarters in both organizations. So at the end, this is how we managed for that particular customer. As you can see, both ordering and offer generations were fairly complex to manage because of the region global country differences and everything. If you agree on some specific price or amount, that the region needed to agree to that as well. It's not, you can't push everything from the headquarters.
And after you successfully implemented all of your policies, you enter the monitor and maintenance phase. And we're just trying to highlight here that this process that we started from the beginning will continue throughout the life cycle. So you'll have to keep this cycle going. Regulations will change, the threat landscape will change, and your security program needs to adapt to it. Also to mention the importance of the CSOC in the OT environment. For manufacturing facilities, they do need to have different skills than for an IT CSOC, and they can manage a lot of the maintenance activities for your security program for you. And many customers prefer not to do that on their own. They prefer to focus on what they do best, which is manufacturing, and to get help from an MSP for their operations center, security operations center.
Yeah, exactly. The static security is dead security usually, or it dies fairly fast. So it needs to keep moving. Okay, our first example was Linde Gas. It's an air separation company headquartered in Germany, about 60,000 people. What is interesting about air separation generally segment? I've actually never worked with air separation before I started working with them. There are only 4 companies that really take care of the whole market. It's Air Liquide, Air Products, Linde, and Praxair. They kind of divide that market worldwide. Each of them is fairly good size. This Linde company has, the number of facilities is above 800 really. So they have a lot of small air separation facilities located throughout the globe and less exposure. So we identified these templates. There were 5 or 6 of them, or 8, and identified security controls. We identified some of the life cycle measures that need to be applied, some frequencies, project plan for implementation of these things. And right now they're in the process of implementing it. I think they're planning to finish next year, if I'm not mistaken. So the next one is Siemens, because we like to do what we preach, and that's the example.
So a few years ago, Siemens took a large look at our security strategies and implemented the holistic security concept following the ISO 27001 and IEC 62443 standards. Can you click the button? And we put 5 levers into all of our products, processes, solutions, services, enhanced security features, a efficient way to handle incidents, a program to do that, of course security awareness through the personnel, and that also involved updating our IT infrastructure as a part of that. And the next slide. This is just the standard protection levels that are recommended in ISO 27001 and IEC 62443. And just to mention, this program is a strong benefit to increasing the security of the products that we manufacture, and also serves as a standard for any customers that would like to follow the same program. And we have a quick example here just showing how the security measures would increase as a protection level increases.
Just one mention, again, about good things happening from the top. This whole program, the holistic security program and review of the current security state, was again initiated from the top and did involve some consulting company that came up with recommendations. So even in our own organization, we couldn't kind of get it from the bottom. It had to be a board decision on that. All right, so those are our contacts. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free. And a little bit, see, that's a standard disclaimer, I think, or something like that. Thank you very much for listening.